the most respected and well-known Houstonians. A published author and advocate for volunteerism. Her strength as a mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother.
What's been the most important things to you?
Family. You're one of my blessings.
The enduring love story of her 73-year marriage. Her passion for improving education and literacy. Barbara Pierce Bush, gone at 92, but with a legacy that lives on. And welcome to Houston Life on a rather somber day here in Houston as we say goodbye to former First Lady Barbara Bush. I'm Derek Shore.
And I'm Courtney Savala. We're so glad you're with us today. When the news broke of Mrs. Bush's passing yesterday evening, of course, tributes to the 92-year-old First Lady started pouring in. We've got a packed show for you today, as always. But we figured we'd start off by taking a look back at this remarkable woman's life. Former press secretary for George H.W. Bush, Peter Russell, is known to the Bush family for more than 50 years. He's joining us along with historian Mr. McKinney. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. I know a difficult day, a difficult night for you, Peter, but this has been so much joy to look back at Barbara's life. I mean, we were chatting before we went on, and she truly was like a friend to you the second you met her.
Like my second mother. They've been like my second family. You know, I hear what you're saying about her having now passed, but I got to tell you, I, for one, don't have to believe that if I don't want to.
Right.
That's how I feel about the Bushes. And, she's been a point, they talk about points of light. She has been a point of light for this country. And I'm honored to have been part of their family for nearly 50 years and had a personal and professional association with them.
And your association began a long, long time ago. You worked as both press secretary, as deputy press secretary in the White House. You held a number of positions over the years. And here, look at this old photo of you guys.
Vintage.
Vintage photos.
That is during the 1970 Senate race in Texas when he was running for the Senate.
Wow. And
yeah, it's a long time ago, isn't it?
Well, Peter, it seems like a lot of people who the Bushes kept close to them, they, you know, their professional lives really sort of blended with their personal lives.
Absolutely. I've always described the Bushes this way. Are they big shots? Yes. Do they act like it? Absolutely not. They are non-big shot big shots. They are down-to-earth, sincere, genuine people, and I've seen that so many times in their lives where they were that way to other people. I think you could sum up Barbara Bush. That's a photo I took actually in 1974. It's my all-time favorite photo of the Bushes, and what really means a lot to me about that photo is the way she signed it. She said to Pete, to his number 2 Ma. And so I've been blessed. I've had 2 mothers. One was named Dewey Russell, and the other was named Barbara Bush.
That's so fantastic. And I love the story that happened instantly when you kept calling her Mrs. Bush, as you recalled.
When I the first day I went to work for him as his press secretary when he was a congressman. And he used to keep his boat out on the Potomac River in those days. So he said, we're going to go out on the boat and it'll be a chance for you to meet Bar. I said, great, because one other thing that a lot of people haven't mentioned about her, she was a writer. She wrote a newsletter for the constituents in his congressional district. It was called Barbara Bush's Scene on Washington. It was about the lesser-known tourist attractions in Washington. I thought it was very clever, in fact. So we get out on the boat, and I'm going, Mrs. Bush, I'm honored to be here. Mrs. Bush this, Mrs. Bush that. All of a sudden, she went, stop. Dearie, call me Bar. Now, dearie was a term of endearment she often used, too. And when she said that, call me Bar, I thought, I'm just this kid recently out of college, and this congressman's wife is telling me to call her Bar. To me, that spoke volumes about Barbara Bush.
Mr. McKinney, we of course know you as a historian. We can't talk about the history of the fabric of Houston without talking about the Bush family, and they are so closely identified with Houston. I think a lot of people forget that Barbara Bush, not actually from Houston, not born in Houston.
No, she's actually born in New York. You know, and I had an opportunity to interact with them when I worked for Theater Under the Stars, and actually the Alley Theater in the Theater District. And when it came to their relationship with Theater Under the Stars with Tuts, I mean, they were the first family of Tuts. I mean, they really were individuals that you could really see the human side of them when they interacted with not only the ushering staff that I helped to manage, but also all the individuals there. And, you know, they came to all of our events, all the different productions. Secret Service, of course, came prior and during, but we really got a chance to see the fun side of them. And they loved the arts. They really did. I mean, they were huge supporters of the arts and also sports. I mean, you know, Barbara Bush, you know, she kept all of her son's, scorecards, you know, and of course she kept her husband's scorecards as well. So what they gave to Houston was so valuable, and just being ambassadors first, and then choosing to, of course, come back to Houston. You know, they could have lived anywhere, you know, but to be able to come back to Houston, which is where their heart was and their home was, meant a lot. And then, of course, George Bush representing us in the Congress, he did a lot for our city back in the 60s and 70s. People don't realize that as well. So there's all that legacy there. The two of them left our city, and I'm passionate about literacy because of Barbara Bush. You know, she got me involved in literacy. So,
you know, could I just mention one thing about Tuts and the Bushes? And when they came back here after the presidency, it was one of the very first nights they were back. It might have been the first night back. They called me and said, we're going to the theater to see a musical. Would you like to go with us? I said, of course. And you know what the show was? It was Brigadoon.
Oh, my
And the reason they wanted to go see that was because that had been playing on Broadway at the time they got married, and that show had a special meaning for them. And I thought, after all these years,
I know.
that is so neat.
It actually just gave me chills.
It did, I know. And do you guys remember the Kiss Cam? Was it the Texans game that they were on the Kiss Cam? It was awesome. That's what I think sums them up as a couple as well.
And
you know,
this is exactly right. She's one of the few people I've ever known, other than baseball people. She could keep the scorecard just as an official score does it.
Yes.
Which has a lot of symbols that people
don't know what it is.
No, they don't. But she would keep that scorecard just like you're supposed to. And she started doing that when he was captain of the baseball team at Yale.
Hidden talents. We do have a couple sound bites that we want to run. Rania Moncarius, who's the head of Crime Stoppers, she had some thoughts.
In the early 80s, I was a young girl growing up, figuring out what I wanted to do in life, and it was Barbara Bush that we always looked to, our First Lady, our example for everything in terms of power and elegance and education and protocol, and we've just always loved her. I've always loved her, spending our summers in Maine, driving by their home at Kennebunkport. Barbara Bush has just always been a foundational person in my life. And in 2015, I got the chance to visit her in her home here in Houston, and it was one of the greatest days and moments of my life.
A lot of people share that sentiment, that their interactions with the Bush family were nothing short of remarkable. Also, Chef Adrian, friend of the show, here's what Chef had to say about her passing.
You know, the most significant thing I remembered about Mrs. Bush, it wasn't when I so much met her. She was very warm and inviting. It was when she walked into the room. She had this presence, this long run of respect, and even in a room full of men, she just was the most noticed and the most strongest person in the room. So that's what I remembered about her. Very welcoming, very inviting. Always made me feel comfortable. She made an effort to engage with me every day in conversation. And another thing I noticed, when she walks into the room as well, she looks for someone to engage with. It's not about what she's about to do. It's about finding someone to talk to and make that connection with. So I thought that was really special.
That is so special to recount, and both of you are shaking your head and nodding your head in agreement there. They didn't call that woman the enforcer for nothing. You know, I mean, she really did capture an audience.
Here's one you never heard. We're sitting here in the Galleria right now. One time, this was after they'd left the presidency, there was some event over here that she'd been to, and I happened to be there, and she saw me. Afterwards, she said, could you give me a ride home? I said, sure, I'll be glad to, except for one thing. I said, I am driving my 1966 Mustang, which has no air conditioning. I said, so, you know, what do you think? She said, well,
let's go.
Next thing, we're in that Mustang driving home. Now, this is a former First Lady.
I love it. I love it.
Peter
Speaks volumes about Barbara Bush.
Mr. McKinney, thank you so much, both of you, for coming. We should mention that on clicktohouston.com, you can find more information about how you can pay your respects to the late Mrs. Bush. The public viewing, of course, is happening on Friday. The service officially happening on Saturday. And the Barbara Bush legacy, if you just look for it online, you can also find ways to make donations in her honor.
That's right. And of course, the Bush family gravesite will be open for the public after the funeral. And then there's the website information to send your condolences. Stay with Houston Life.